Ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Banner!
Oh, that was nice. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Now it seems fake, but thank you. Thank you, guys. Apologies to everybody who thought I was the bouncer. Man, so many people are like, hey, man, where's the bathroom? I'm on the fucking poster. What? Just do coke at your table like a regular person. Glad we could all be here together tonight. It's nice, isn't it, to be in the basement of a building in the most overdue earthquake zone in the fucking world? Isn't that great? We are in an overdue earthquake zone here. I hope you guys are prepared for the upcoming shaker. I am not prepared. The only thing I've done to prepare for the earthquake is I no longer take showers. I'm exclusively a lay down flat in the bath guy. Because I was stoned in the shower one day and I was like, man, if an earthquake hit right now, I could slip and fall. I could be seriously injured. But if the earthquake hits when I'm in the tub, worst case scenario, I drop one of my hot dogs. Don't look down your nose at me like you haven't enjoyed a few tub dogs before, right? It's good for you. Mic cord's all fucked up here. I have a cord just like this at home that I wrap around my neck. When I'm cooking, relax. Not all asphyxiation needs to be erotic, you know? Spread it around your day. I like to switch up the way I get high every decade. In my teen years, whiskey. In my 20s, weed. Now that I'm in my late 30s, I like to stand up quickly. Just crank up the tunes, pop up off the love seat, and try not go through the coffee table again. I'm a beer drinker. I like beer. It's got to be cold, though, right? I bought a case of beer a couple weeks ago that was so cold, I was like, oh, this is dangerous because I want to drink it now, but I was driving, and they frown on that. But I convinced myself it was so cold that it was legal. Like, if I got pulled over, I would just press the can to the cop's cheek and be like, come on, man. Like, but I convinced myself it was so cold that it was legal, so I cranked and I took one little sip, and then I look in the car next to me, and there's a woman who was staring at me, but she was also picking her nose. Deep. Like, she was almost touching ring, and we made eye contact. We exchanged a look that said, I won't say anything if you don't. I've never done anything heavier than booze or weed. A buddy of mine tried to get me to do acid on a deer hunting trip a couple years ago, but I try to keep acid and rifles pretty far apart from each other. He got mad at me. He's like, you never do acid with me. Like, that's a legitimate gripe between adults, right? I won't do acid with him because I learned the dangers of acid at an early age. A substitute high school gym teacher approached a group of my friends and I, and he said something by today's standard is so wild, he'd be fired by the end of the school day. But this is year 2000, it was the Wild West. He came up to us and he goes, you guys know if you do acid more than 3 times, you're legally retarded. And he walked away. Legally, like a judge is involved in the decision. I sentence you to 4 years. No. And we were stunned because we were not talking about acid or drugs of any kind. He just came up and sprinkled this information on us. I think he was trying to explain why he was so shitty at badminton. I know I use a word in that story that is not used in polite society anymore. There's a lot of those words that we try to cut back on these days. I worked with an Australian comedian a couple years ago who used the C word so many times throughout the weekend. And like even just now you see I say C word, I try not to say the word because when an Australian says it, there's like a poetic flow to it. But when a Canadian says it, it sounds like a hate crime. But he used it so many times throughout the weekend, I stopped registering that he was saying it. And this woman came up to me during the show and she said, do you hear what he just said? I said, no, ma'am, what did he say? She said, he said a word you should never under any circumstances say. Oh my God, I said, did he say the N-word? She said, no, he said the C-U-N-T word. And I've never heard anybody spell the whole thing, right? Like normally you say C and we come to an understanding. But She spelled it out, and I thought the funniest thing for me would be to pretend that I didn't know what she was spelling. I said, he said, what? She said, the C-U-N-T word. I said, I don't follow. She said, the C-U-N-T word. I said, what are you spelling? She said, cunt. I said, ha, made you say it. And then she said it to me in a blind rage, the way you're supposed to use that word. It's been a very exciting last couple of years. I got married. That was a big, wonderful life thing. No. And divorced. And then I got married again, because that's what you do, right? You tunnel out of prison, and then you turn around and walk back in the front gate. I'm like, no, let me back in. I forgot I hate to finish sentences. I think as a comedian, there was an expectation that I was going to write a lot of jokes shitting on my ex-wife, but as far as ex-wives go, she's been great. 10 out of 10 would divorce again. Everybody in this room should divorce my ex-wife at least once, right? She was great. She didn't want any money or any of my wrestling shirts. She just... The only thing she wanted to keep is we had a big white Christmas tree. That was the only thing she wanted in the divorce. It was the only 6-foot white thing she wanted to keep. Don't feel bad, I'm actually 6'2", it's pretty sweet. But yeah, I got married again, and if anybody here is in their first marriage, you know what? The second marriage is so much better. Like, I almost can't wait for the third, right? I'm married, so that means I'll never send another dick pic, right? Like, I sent my wife a dick pic once, and she said, yeah, I remember. But that means the last dick pic I sent is the last dick pic I will send. And if I had known it was the last one, I would have done something nice to commemorate the occasion, like tie a ribbon around it or something, right? At least I would have trimmed my toenails, but... I didn't know where I was going to stand, like spiritually, religiously, when I got divorced, because I had to convert to get married. I was not religious. My wife wasn't, but her mom was, so it was really important to her that I converted. So 5 years ago, I converted to Islam. Yep, nobody's ever clapped for that, not fucking once. It's too late now. I know how you vote. It's a very simple process. I went to my mother-in-law's mosque. I said 2 prayers in Arabic, and I chose a Muslim name. I was very nervous going into a mosque the first time. I'm from a small town, never been in a mosque before, and I was like, what if I walk through the door and just burst into flames? Because I am full of ham. Packed with pig meat. Walked through the door and didn't light on fire, so we sit down at the table for the ceremony, and it was my mother-in-law-to-be, my wife-to-be, our 2 witnesses were just guys who were at the mosque that day, both named Ahmed. Never sat at a table with one guy named Ahmed, so this was thrilling. So we sit down for the ceremony, I say the 2 prayers, and the imam says, wow, your Arabic is perfect. Have you done this before? And I thought for sure he's joking, because why would I convert twice, right? So I joked back, I was like, nah, I guess I'm just talented. Dead fucking silence. Nothing from my mother-in-law, nothing from my wife, nothing from Ahmed, nothing from Ahmed. Just an awkward, heavy silence that hung in the air. I was like, oh, I gotta pick my name, right? And we moved this along. I chose the Muslim name Farouk because there was a pro wrestler in the 90s with that name. He was the leader of the Nation of Domination. I thought that was pretty sweet. I didn't know a lot of Muslim names going into it. I knew Farouk. I knew my wife's name. I thought it'd be a little weird if I took her first name. I knew Mufasa. Spoiler, he dies pretty early in The Lion King. I thought that'd be a bad omen for our marriage. Turns out it would have been the perfect omen for our marriage. Died pretty early. So I said, okay, no Lion King. What about just lion? What's lion in Arabic? And they said Osama. And I said, I'm going to go with something else. He's got some bad press this millennium. So yeah, my first wife, Muslim. My second wife, Muslim. Her name's Sarah. She snuck it past me. I had no idea. But that's okay. It works out perfectly because my sexual fetish is to hide my tattoos from my in-laws forever. I got some shitty tattoos when I was younger. I got a Japanese word tattooed on my arm when I was 18 that when I was 35 found out meant something different. I'm one of those guys. I showed it to a Japanese coworker and he said, oh yeah, that means you're like physically strong. And I said, oh, fuck, I thought it meant I had like inner strength. Either way, it's false advertising, but I got nervous. I was like, does that offend you as a Japanese man that I have a Japanese word on my arm? Like, is that what they call cultural appropriation? He's like, no, the only culture you've appropriated is late 90s douchebags. Fair enough, nobody's looking out for those guys. But I didn't want to just take his word for it, because I find sometimes we'll say something offensive about a group of people. We'll find one person in that group that agrees with us and say, see, he said it was fine. So I asked another Japanese coworker. I said, does it offend you as a Japanese man that I have this tattoo? And I will never forget what he said. He said, I'm Mexican. Whoopsie daisy. I am so embarrassed, Julio. I did not realize. The worst tattoo I have was given to me by a guy named Cobra. To paint a picture for you guys of what Cobra looked like, he was a short, very skinny white guy who was wearing an 8-ball jacket. But between us, I feel like any jacket Cobra was wearing was an 8-ball jacket. Cobra looked like he brushed his hair and teeth with firecrackers. There's a lot of gaps in and around his head. He didn't look like somebody I should trust to give me a permanent piece of body art, but when I went into his shop, there was a plaque on the wall that said, second place, New York International Tattoo Festival. I've never heard of that festival, but they don't make plaques for nothing, right? So I thought I was in the skilled hands of an artiste, so I sit down, he gives me the tattoo, and then I go look in the mirror, and I go, oh, yeah, that sucks shit and is forever. And I said, hey, Cobra, that plaque you've got on the wall there. And he goes, yeah, that's for this tattoo I got. And he rolled up his sleeve to show me an award-winning tattoo he was given. Not that he gave. Can't fucking do that, Cobra. Like, I can't put the Netflix logo on posters for my shows and people show up, they're like, you were on Netflix? I'm like, no, but I watched Stranger Things. I wanted to fucking kill Cobra. I wanted to murder Cobra, but I'm not gonna kill somebody in Canada. I'm not gonna go to jail for 2.5 to 3 years, right, guys? I do have anger issues. My wife would like me to deal with my anger issues. She wants me to take an anger management class, and I'm going to tell her I took an anger management class. I'm just gonna leave the house for a few hours, come home and say, yeah, no, they said I was fine. They said, if anything, I could get even angrier, and you should shut the fuck up about it. I don't want to give the impression that I'm like a mean, angry husband, but I do have bad road rage that she would like me to deal with. I have such bad road rage, sometimes I get it when I'm not in the car. I was crossing the street downtown Vancouver, and a guy in an SUV came through the intersection. He almost hit me, so I reached out and I punched the back window of his SUV, and I figured that's where it would end, but he pulled over and he started shouting at me out of his window, and I was very brave standing in the crosswalk. I started shouting back at him. I didn't think he was going to get out of the car. I've shouted at hundreds of people out of my car, and I never got out, so I thought those are the rules, but he immediately starts to get out. And 3 things about this guy startled me. First, he put his hand on the back panel to like push up out of his seat, and I noticed his hand was about the size of a loaf of bread. Those are some big mitts. And second, I noticed that he had a cauliflower ear. Truly terrifying, right? I would rather fight a guy with 2 knives than 1 cauliflower ear. Because I don't know if you know about cauliflower ears, but you don't get them from gardening too hard, right? And the third thing, and by far the most distressing, is he stood up out of his car and he just kept standing up. He was about 7 feet tall. And my heart sank because my go-to self-defense move is to bear hug a guy and bite his cheek. I say it's my go-to. I've only done it once, but it was super duper effective. But now this guy's cheek is up here. I don't have the vertical leap to get up there, so I was like a clawless cat in the wild. I was in the middle of shouting, go fuck yourself, when my brain, heart, and balls pulled the e-brake on my tongue. Like, you are not finishing that sentence. The problem is I had already started to shout that sentence, so I had to pivot mid-thought. So instead of shouting, go fuck yourself, I shouted at the top of my lungs, 4 p.m. on a Thursday, downtown Vancouver, go fuck your wife! gave him permission to go have sex with his wife. And I thought, okay, maybe you said that intensely enough that, like it worked as an insult and you didn't look stupid. And then I heard a woman on the corner go, ha! So yeah, I do need some anger management. And there are little things that drive me nuts too. I have a friend, she posts like 15 to 20 motivational memes a week on her Instagram. And it'd be fine if they all made sense, but they do not all make sense. She posted one, like, the expression, be a diamond in the rough? She posted one that said, be a diamond and the rough. You want to be the good thing and the bad? Like, in the original expression, the rough is a coal mine. You want to be a coal mine? Like, there are easier ways to get 10 guys from West Virginia inside you, you know what I mean? Like, that's what moonshine is for, right? Another thing that made me mad recently is I was in a train station in Vancouver and there was this homeless couple being very loud. And that's not what made me mad. What made me mad was the woman in front of me who turned to them and said, use your inside voices. They live outside. That's kind of mean to say. Like, if they were making out, would you say, get a room? They'd love a room. It would be... Bad customer service makes me angry, too. I was at a bar in Vancouver. We were out on the patio. It was a nice day, and I noticed something on the ground by our table. I called our server over. I said, excuse me, miss, there's a pile of puke right over there. And she came and looked, and she goes, oh, that's from yesterday. Oh, okay, then. Forget about it. I thought it was fresh, and that was my only issue with the puke. But it's not like you leave the city and all of a sudden, customer service is this wonderful, magical thing. I was deer hunting up near Goldbridge, British Columbia, population 44. And we went into the one store they have there to buy some supplies. And my buddy Mark said to the woman behind the counter, he goes, oh, I'll also get a bottle of Fireball. And she said, you want the big one or the little one? He said, I'll take the little one. And she said, pussy. And I burst out laughing. I was like, oh, we're not in the city right now, are we? And she goes, why? They don't call you a pussy in the city when you act like a pussy? I was like, oh, shit, I'm moving here. I appreciate that nobody got mad when I mentioned deer hunting there. Sometimes in the city, people will like boo or hiss when I mention it. They act like when I'm talking about deer hunting, they act like I'm talking about human hunting, and I cannot afford that, right? That's what all the billionaires do now that Epstein Island is closed, right? Oh, I know, if ever there was a sympathetic bunch, it's the pedophile billionaires. Get fucked. Deer hunting is fun. There are certain things some of the guys I hunt with do that I will not do. Like, some of them will put deer pee on their clothes to get an advantage. But it's like, I won't do that, but that is the only sport where you can do that, right? Like, can't show up at a men's rec hockey game with a jar of goalie piss. Like, we're gonna get him! When I got divorced, I moved back to my hometown for a year, and it was interesting because I had a friend came over, and she was a comedian. She was like, hey, can I crash on your couch? I've got a gig. I said, no problem. We're driving back to my place after the gig, and she says, oh, I guess when we get back to your place, we'll have to be quiet so we don't wake up your parents. And I was like, oh, I don't live with my parents. I was like, does everybody back in Vancouver think I live with my parents? And she's like, yeah, we just assumed you moved in with your parents. I was like, oh, I would like them to not assume that. But that puts me in a tough position because I can't just go on Facebook and be like, I don't live with my parents. That sounds like something a guy who lives with his parents might say, right? One thing I noticed after being in the city for a decade and going back to the small town is that city folk tend to look down their nose at small town Canadians, and small town Canadians despise city folk. And I learned that because I was working with this guy, and he goes, what would you do for fun in Vancouver anyway? Go to a park and play dodgeball with drag queens? He said that like it wouldn't be the fucking greatest day ever. Nobody in this room has had a day that fun in their life. Are you kidding me? Dodgeball with drag queens? First of all the fun of throwing something at a woman, none of the guilt. Secondly, how truly ignorant of that guy to say that, right? Like, that's so ignorant. Who thinks dodgeball is played in a park? That's a gymnasium sport. Fucking eat cyanide, you bum. When I moved back to Vancouver, I was walking down the street and a woman was pushing a baby carriage towards me, and I love babies, so I look in the carriage to see if it was a baby or a Jack Russell. I've been fooled before, right? And I look in and it's a baby, so I smile at the baby and I look up and the mother is not smiling at me. She was glaring at me like I was gonna kidnap her kid. And I had no intention of kidnapping her kid until she challenged me like that, right? I did not kidnap her kid. My wife and I had a baby this year, which was a wonderful, exciting thing. Thank you. Yeah, it was very exciting. The last 10 months have just been a blur of diapers. My daughter takes 2 to 4 runny shits a day. Yeah, so I don't need a DNA test. She's mine. Last Thursday, she pooped so hard I had to wipe her armpits. So we know she's my wife's kid. The day after my daughter was born, a comedian friend of mine called me and he said, "Hey, congrats, I heard you guys had the baby. Did you guys have a boy or a girl?" I said, "We had a girl." He goes, "Oh, don't you wish you had a boy?" Which is a sociopathic thing to say to somebody 24 hours after they definitely had a girl, right? And so I said, "No, I'm thrilled to be the father of a little girl. Like, what could be better than that, right? First of all, think of all the money I'm gonna save. One day I'm gonna be the tooth fairy, and if I had a son, that's a buck a tooth. Daughter, 78 cents. We're gonna teach her..." A few of you groaned, and I get it. You want to show the people at your table that you're a wonderful person, but when you get home tonight and you put your head down on the pillow, admit to yourself that's a fucking deadly joke. One thing I was not prepared for when I became a dad was that I didn't realize that we would be judged so much by other parents about decisions we made with our baby. I didn't realize that formula versus breastfeeding was such a hot button issue. We planned to breastfeed. The milk didn't show. We like the baby. She's too young for pizza bagels, so I went to buy some formula, and formula's on sale, so I was getting 2 boxes, and this woman in the baby aisle, a complete stranger, turns to me and she goes, "Have you guys considered breastfeeding?" And everybody in the baby aisle turned and looked at me, and I felt so ashamed. And the only way I know how to fight shame is with shame. So I turned to her and I said, my wife died. And that is how I got a stranger to buy me 2 boxes of formula. So yeah, I know that doesn't make me look like a wonderful person, but I guarantee you she keeps her trap shut in the baby aisle going forward, right? I gave her a mind your business booster. Becoming a dad was the easiest thing I would ever do, right? All I had to do was not buy condoms. That's super easy. It's one of the easiest things you'll do all day. When I was younger, I was always nervous to buy condoms, so I would buy other things and stack them up on top of the condoms on the counter. But now, I use condoms to distract from the things I'm embarrassed about buying as a guy who's almost 40, where I'm like, yeah, I gotta get this athlete's foot cream, but I'm also doing some fucking, so... Yeah, as long as she does not look at my toes, we're gonna do some fucking. I'm almost 40, so that also means that a prostate exam is on the horizon. They won't do it before you're 40, no matter how many times I call the doctor's office. Like, come on, doc, my wife did this to me in an Airbnb jacuzzi once. I want to see how a pro takes a run at it, you know? They told me when I became a dad I was going to become so much more mature so quickly, and it clearly has not happened. I know that too because every time I pass one of those "your speed" signs on the side of the road, I try to hit 69. And I don't know why, because it's not like it's going to be like a bat signal for horny women that are like, pull over! see what you're doing up there and I like it. Like, that'll never happen, right? The best case scenario, there'll be a guy behind me who sees it and goes, When I was a kid, I thought Bavarian cream pie was called barbarian cream pie. And as an adult, I don't recommend Googling that. I like that joke because it lets me know who's on Pornhub. Nice to be here with you guys tonight. I went and bought a new outfit for this. I got it at the Big and Tall because that is my option. The Big and Tall is funny to me because it's always like, anytime I go in there, I'm fascinated because they have like really fancy, expensive dress clothes up to like 10XL. And anytime I see it, I always wonder, like, if you're that big, where are you going that you got to get dressed up? Like, the McRib is back. Where's my tuxedo? Seem to have misplaced my top hat. They have 10XL leather jackets. It looks like someone just pulled all the stuffing out of a love seat. It's like, why does your new jacket say lazy boy on the arm? I think the reason people get that big is that they make clothes that big. Like, if you were just like, 4XL's the cutoff, after that, you're on your own. You gotta wrap up in a tarp or cut holes in a barbecue cover, right? When I first moved to Vancouver years ago, there had been a number of attacks on women at night. And let's be crystal clear, it wasn't me. I'm not up here confessing, just starting a new story. But there was an article that came out around that time, and everyone in the comedy community in Vancouver was just talking about the article. You read the article, you read the article, you read the article. And it was tips on how you could help the women. It wasn't like, here's how to get them better, fellas, right? That'd be irresponsible journalism. And one of the tips in the article was, if you're a man walking down the street, you see a woman walk in your direction, cross the street if you can, just give her space. I thought, that's easy, that's something I can do. So one night I'm walking down 12th Avenue in Vancouver, and I don't want to speak to my mental state at the time, but I definitely wasn't over the influence of drugs and alcohol. And see a lady coming my way, and I go, it's good guy time, I'm going to cross the street. So I start to cross the street, and I look up, and she had started to cross the street. Instant backfire. Then, with the timing and precision of Olympic ice dancers, we both stepped back towards the curb and froze. We're standing in the middle of 12th Avenue at midnight like two gunslingers in the Old West. Neither one of us wanted to make the first move, and so I thought it would be helpful to scream. I screamed, I read the article! And she took off running. Full sprint into the night, Donovan Bailey in high heels. It was impressive to watch, right? She was giving her. And I know I'm joking about it now, but in that moment, I felt truly terrible. I felt so guilty. I was like, my God, you are trying to do the right thing. And this woman is so afraid. She is running. Like, just go after her and explain yourself, right? I did not go after her and explain. I find as a man, anytime you're chasing a strange woman through the dark, you're wrong. Well, you guys have been lovely. I've got one more thing to tell you before I get out of here. I think if the last few years has taught us anything, it's that we should all do our best to try and be kinder to strangers. You don't know what anybody's dealing with these days, right? And I think we can all get behind that. Here's a lesson from somebody tried to start a clap and everyone else is like, fuck everyone that lives. Fuck them in the throat. But maybe you weren't that harsh, but in my head, that's how it came off. But yeah, here's a lesson from my life about being kinder to strangers. I was in an office building downtown Vancouver, in a men's room, sitting on the toilet, fully clothed, playing Angry Birds because I'm a terrible employee. And the door to the men's room burst open, the door to the stall next to me burst open. I heard a panicked voice go, oh, no, 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 it's everywhere. And I was intrigued. I said, hello? He said, who's there? I said, my name's Kevin. He goes, Kevin, I shit my pants. I said, yeah. That is the terrified voice of a man who just shit himself at work. But, kinder to strangers, I said, hey, don't worry about it. I've got a pair of shorts in my truck downstairs. I'll go get them. I'll bring them back up. So I go get the shorts. I bring them back up. I throw them over the top of the stall. First words out of his mouth were, ooh, they're awful big. Yeah, they are awful big, but if you look inside them, zero human shit. Not a smudge, not a nugget, not a skid mark. Brand new, have not even been farted into yet. But it pissed me off that he didn't say thank you. They're awful big. And I said, yeah, there's no shit in them. And he goes, you're right, you're right, you're right. But yikes. Yikes. I'm like, I'm getting roasted by a guy who just made a mud pie at his desk. So I was like, all right, well, forget those ones. Just throw them back over and try this other pair. So he threw them over. I left. There was no other pair, right? And that day, he learned a lesson about being kinder to strangers. You guys were so much fun. Thank you so much. Love you.